So we need to help people now in that regard as well. So as we look at across the board, those are some of the things we can do regarding the economy. Some other things that we need to do. We need to get out of Iraq ASAP. ASAP. And that, I mean, the Republicans and Democrats need to come to some resolution. We cannot sustain this. As one of the presidential candidates noted, he wants to stay there for 100 years. Well, economically, that just can't happen. That just cannot happen. We're spending $12 billion a month in Iraq. $12 billion a month. When the president and some of the actuaries back in the day were crunching numbers, I think one of the generals mentioned it can cost $100 billion in Iraq, the total cost of the war. Well, that individual was fired. So you see the funny math they have in Washington. I trust no numbers coming out of Washington regarding the cost of this war, because currently it's estimated it's going to cost anywhere from 1.2 to up to $3 trillion. $3 trillion with a T. And we're borrowing a lot of that money, if not all of it. We're borrowing that money from Saudi Arabia, our new banker, from China, the communist military government of China, who does not have our best interests at heart. And we can go on down the line to other countries. So what we need to do now is to come to some resolution of how we're getting on. We don't have to tell our enemies anything about the plans that we have. We can have secret meetings amongst the Democrats and Republicans, amongst the Maliki government and the players in the Middle East as well, who are going to have a dramatic impact on what's going on. Because the funny thing is, our president, for example, talks about security in Iraq, and every other high dignitary who goes into Iraq, our president in particular, he goes in the cover of darkness. He shows up for a couple hours and leaves. Now, the flip side of that is that one of our strategic enemies, if you will, in the region, Iran, their president went in and did a red carpet salute and hung out with the people in Iraq. Now, what does that tell you about America? Our president has to go in the cover of darkness, stay for a couple hours and get out of Dodge. Now, the president of Iran, one of our, he definitely doesn't love America, and he doesn't love some of our allies either. He's talking, he can go into Iraq and do flag wavings, go through communities, and he's supported. Now, that tells a lot. That says a lot right there. And we can't fake that. We can't fake that. And so from that standpoint, there's a disconnect from Washington to what's actually going on in Iraq, and to our brave men and women. They have fought so bravely during this conflict. My cousin fought so bravely for this conflict. And he was one of the ones who had to come back and deal with the recovery piece. I'm sure a lot of you heard the scandals out at Walter Reed. Well, he wasn't at Walter Reed, but he had to deal with his own medical nightmares of coming back, getting readjusted after going through that process. And he's going to need help for some time to come. But again, Washington is not adapted right now to that, because right now, every year you have to re-up for Veterans Administration funding, and that should be mandatory funding each year. We know what was going to be in the pot, and we know what type of increase would be there for our veterans. We shouldn't have to go around, our veterans shouldn't have to beg to get services because they put their lives on the front line. And many have put their lives on the front line for this particular conflict. And in Afghanistan, the forgotten war. Many people forget about that we actually started in Afghanistan. And that's where we should have focused everything, because that's where bin Laden is. That's where he's hiding out between the mountains in Afghanistan and Pakistan. But yet we haven't dealt with that situation. So there's a lot we can do right now to address the fundamental issues, because you have to tie Iraq to the economy.